All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a concept that completely flips the script on how we think about getting rich. Look, we all have that ultimate goal, right? Building a high net worth, securing our financial freedom, and finally affording the things we've always dreamed about. But here's the massive mistake most of us make right out of the gate. We fixate on the lillions. We look at the finish line before we've even tied our shoes, and honestly, it's paralyzing. It makes the gap between where you are now and where you want to be look completely impossible to cross. But what if I told you the true secret to incredible wealth isn't about focusing on millions at all?
A highly successful millionaire once gave this piece of advice to a kid who was just totally stressing out about money. He said, "Don't worry about earning millions. Focus on the first $100,000. And why? Well, because after that, your net worth is going to go absolutely crazy. Okay, let's dive into this because I promise you, this isn't just some cheap motivational platitude. There's actual hardcore math and psychology behind why this specific threshold, $100,000, is the ultimate tipping point for your financial life.
Section 1, the first 100K hurdle, and why it's the hardest. Look, building wealth from absolute zero, it's a frustrating grind. The deck is honestly mathematically stacked against you right now. Get this, a recent study actually found that Gen Z has roughly 86% less buying power than the boomer generation did at the exact same age. Think about that for a second. 86%. It is significantly harder to stretch a dollar today. And a huge part of this equation is that older generations are staying in the workforce a lot longer than they used to. That means those higher paid senior positions are bottlenecked. They're just way harder to come by when you're young and hungry. And that brings us perfectly to the first massive barrier, which is your earning power. Think of your career like a video game. When you're just starting out, you're essentially at level 1, right? You just haven't been playing the game long enough to build up the skills, the network, or the specialized knowledge you really need to compete with those boss-level players who've been at it for decades. You can't command that same salary yet because, well, you haven't unlocked those high-level abilities. That's just the reality of the game. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. Younger generations actually have a massive, absolutely unprecedented advantage: the internet. Gen Z and millennials inherently know how to leverage Instagram, TikTok, and these online platforms to build side hustles that a lot of older generations just don't fully understand. Really, there are very few boomers who can keep up with you when it comes to navigating the digital economy to generate that extra income. Now, the second major reason that first 100K is so absolutely brutal is the lack of compound interest. Let's look at the classic snowball effect. Imagine rolling a tiny snowball down a snowy hill. As it rolls, it naturally picks up more snow, right? And that extra snow represents your compound interest. So the bigger the snowball gets, the more surface area it has, meaning it collects even more snow even faster. It's a beautiful concept. But here's the harsh truth. When you have less than $100,000, your snowball is basically the size of a pebble. It's just not big enough to pick up any significant snow yet. Let's say you manage to scrape together $10,000 and invest it in an S&P 500 index fund, getting a historical average return of around 7% a year. Well, after 5 grueling years of waiting patiently, your $10,000 has only earned you $4,175 in interest. I mean, 5 years for $4,000. That is exactly why the early days are so incredibly difficult. At this stage, your wealth is totally dependent on how much you can physically contribute to your investing pot yourself, rather than the interest you're making. It requires working those extra side hustles and, resisting the painful urge to blow your cash on vacations or designer clothes. Section 2, the compound snowball. Here's what happens after that first 100K. Trust me on this, the sacrifice is absolutely worth it. Because once you finally cross that magic threshold, the timeline dramatically shrinks. We're entering the phase where compound interest stops being this lame, slow-moving trickle and becomes something genuinely unbelievable. If you invest 10K annually at that 7% return, going from zero to your first 100K takes almost 8 years, 7.84 years to be exact. It's a slog, but watch this. Going from 100K to 200K, that only takes 5.1 years. You just made your second $100,000 35% faster, and it just keeps accelerating. By the time you're jumping from 400K to $500,000, it takes a mere 2.5 years. The milestones literally start flying by. To really hammer home the sheer power of this threshold, just consider this invest and forget reality. Let's say you hustle hard, you hit that 100K mark, you put it all into an S&P 500 index fund, and then you just stop. You never invest another dime. You literally forget the password to your brokerage account. Simply because of compound interest, you are mathematically on track to become a millionaire in 33 years. Hitting 100K is basically creating this ultimate automated safety net for your future. It makes wealth almost inevitable. Section 3, the growth framework. These are the 6 steps to your first 100K. All right, the G is for gain control. Now, budgeting isn't about restriction. It's really a strategic cash flow allocation tool to separate your core needs from those momentary wants. You don't have to be miserably frugal here. You just have to be fully in control. It's about guiding your money with intention rather than letting it guide you. Next up is R, root your investments. And the absolute key here is starting as early as humanly possible. Think about this. If you invest just $250 a month in an S&P 500 index fund at an average 7% return over 40 years, you'll end up with $656,000. But here's the mind-blowing part. $536,000 of that is purely from compound interest. You only put in $120,000 of your own actual money. So the earlier you root these investments, the less of your own heavy lifting you actually have to do later in life. So once you're making money, you hit O, optimize your tax management. Now let's be very precise here, okay? So the crucial point is understanding the clear difference between tax avoidance, which is completely legal and exactly what smart entrepreneurs do, and tax evasion, which is highly illegal and will absolutely land you in jail. Yes, the rich pay the majority of taxes, but society provides massive tax incentives for entrepreneurs because they create jobs and stimulate the economy. Basically, employees are taxed on their salary immediately. Entrepreneurs, they're taxed on their profits after deducting business expenses. So how do you actually use this? Well, by starting a business or a side hustle around your passion. Let's say you totally love technology. You could start a YouTube channel reviewing the newest gadgets. Once that channel starts generating income, you can deduct the cost of those tech items, like, say, a new iPhone, from your profits as a justifiable business expense. You're effectively getting the government to help subsidize the equipment you need for your passion, getting them tax-free. Now, it obviously has to be a legitimate, justifiable expense for the business, but man, this is a massive lever for wealth creation. Section 4, defeating debt, the ultimate roadblock. Listen, you can be doing everything else perfectly right, but if you ignore this next step, you're going to constantly be taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back. The W stands for weed out debts. Earlier, we talked about the magic of compound interest working for you. Well, debt is compound interest working against you. It's the dark side of the equation. Think back to our little snowball rolling down the hill. High interest debt is literally like a blazing hot sun beating down on your snowball, just melting away your wealth faster than you can pack it on. You absolutely must list out your debts and ruthlessly tackle the ones with the highest interest rates first. Now, if you're sitting there feeling totally overwhelmed, just remember that $221,800 is the debt load carried by the average American today. You are definitely not alone in this. But the key is to not neglect it, because ignoring debt just guarantees massive stress in your future. Even if you can only make tiny little snowflake payments above your minimums, do it. Every single dollar counts here. It might feel like you're losing money by paying it off, but shifting your mindset is vital. Paying off high-interest debt is a direct, guaranteed investment toward reaching your first 100K. Moving right along to T, tap into additional streams of income. As of 2023, 50% of Americans have a side hustle. Even folks earning over 6 figures a year are diversifying their income. And why? Because a side hustle simply gives you more money to funnel into your tax-advantaged investment accounts. Going back to our analogy, you are literally shoveling more snow onto your snowball by hand, just forcing it to grow faster until compound interest can finally take the wheel. Finally, we reach the H in the growth framework, heightened self-discipline. Honestly, none of the steps we've covered, budgeting, investing early, optimizing taxes, weeding out debt, or starting a side hustle, absolutely none of it will happen without inner discipline. Discipline is the true currency of success. The more discipline you mint today when things are hard, the wealthier, freer, and easier your future is going to become. It really is the engine that drives the entire system. So, we've broken down exactly why the first 100K is an absolute beast to conquer, but also why it's, without a doubt, the most important financial hurdle of your life. Once you cross that tipping point, time and compound interest become your greatest allies, rapidly accelerating your path to becoming a millionaire. You've got the growth framework to guide you. The math is clear. The strategy is set. So, ask yourself, what is the very first handful of snow you're going to pack today to start building your avalanche?